I never in a million years thought that I'd be working in content creation or in politics or public speaking. My dream was to be a surgeon, actually. My educational background is in biomedical sciences. But throughout my young adult life in college and then after graduation, I've just discovered that there is a fundamental assault on objective truth and beyond truth, goodness and beauty in society. And sitting in my college classes, for example, in anatomy and physiology, we weren't talking about the pursuit of objective truth. We were talking about why a border wall was racist or why the US Constitution should be outlawed because it no longer fits in modern society, or inside the context of science that abortion didn't end a genetically unique human life or your gender had nothing to do with your chromosomes. And I was so intimately frustrated by that because I was looking around at the sea of 33,000 students that I was attending school with and not seeing a single person stand up to boldly fight for the values I was raised with or objective truth at large. And I decided to do something about that. So got very involved in activism on my college campus. We brought speakers like Dennis Prager and Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk to address our student body. I gained quite the reputation of being that conservative girl on my campus, but fell in love with facilitating these conversations and challenging the mainstream perspective for our generation. Started doing that on social media after graduation, and it's been a whirlwind journey ever since. Today, I post 15-second videos on TikTok. I host hour-long live streams all across other social media platforms, but get to reach tens of millions of Gen Zers all over the world just telling people the truth. Backlash comes with the territory of working on the internet. Honestly, I think I was more intimately wounded by the backlash when it was on my college campus and I was doing more boots on the ground style activism because those were people I knew. I sat next to them in class. I worked with them in student government. I've been called just about every horrible name in the book that you can possibly imagine. Hitler Youth Barbie and Nazi Barbie, transphobic, homophobic. I'm often called misogynistic or anti-woman, usually by men, and I thought no uterus, no opinion, but that gets thrown out the window very quickly. And so I've been there and done that with all the name calling. I've gotten the death threats, the threats of violence. My address has been doxxed. And that's really intimidating at first when you start in activism. And I think they go so loud and so hyperbolic and so crazy with the sole intention of scaring you into submission, of getting you to sit down and stop talking and stop telling the truth. If you can work through that for the first couple of weeks and realize I'm none of these things that they're calling me, I know who I am. There is so much freedom and foundational joy that comes out on the other end of that. More often than not today, all of the response that I get on social media is overwhelmingly positive. I will usually get the occasional, DM and comment on social media that's really bad and says some horrible things, but 90+% of the time, even if someone is disagreeing with me, I'm noticing this huge hunger in our generation to just challenge perspectives, have real conversations, pursue truth in a world that's trying to erase that concept. I did work in the White House. I was part of the summer 2018 intern class for the Trump administration. I worked in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, which was started under the Reagan or Bush administration. The Obama administration got rid of it and then Trump brought it back. But basically we worked with mayors and county commissioners and state legislators all over the country with the sole intention of reminding Americans that the federal government works for you and not the other way around. So we brought out local elected officials and state elected officials from all over the country to give them all of the resources that they needed to be successful in governing at the local level. And it was probably my favorite work experience I've ever had. I think we're coming around on that, to be honest with you. 90+% of my generation has a negative view of cancel culture. And I think it's because the left has gone so far in trying to just eliminate and eviscerate you from society if you disagree with the approved mainstream narrative that it's just become so ridiculous, right? I mean, J.K. Rowling, for example, saying, I support women's right to exist and you're fine to be a trans woman, but it's not the same thing. Look at the treatment she's received over the last several years in Western culture. It's wild to see how many people are just trying to eliminate any sort of difference of opinion or dialogue at all in a constructive sense. I think people are really sick and tired of that, and we're very, very tired of everything being about partisan politics when it really just doesn't have to be, right? So I do think we're coming along on that. However, I think how we got here was really that good people who were firm in their values and they were fine to believe in the things they did were very polite, right? You just stay quiet. You don't want to get involved in the hustle and tussle of all of the diversity of opinion and the backlash and the dialogue. You would rather just stay out of it and keep your hands clean of it. That lack of ability to get involved, that laissez-faire, hands-off attitude is exactly what led the loudest voices to gain complete control of the conversation. So we're realizing the need now to go more on offense, to be louder about the things that we believe in, not in a rude or mean or combative way, but just in an honest way. And I think that's really facilitating a good step forward. 5 things I do for fun. I grew up in the mountains of Colorado, so I love being outside. So anything outdoors, skiing, hiking, camping, the whole 9. I love a good book. I will always read a good book, and I can get through a book very, very, very quickly. My dog is my best friend in the world, with the exception of my fiance, so I love hanging out with my dog. She's a corgi named Liberty, which is very on brand for Isabel. I love traveling to other countries around the world and connecting with people in different cultures. And a 5th one, I've gotten really into cooking lately. Maybe it's like my soon-to-be wife era, but I'm really enjoying trying out new recipes and spending some time cooking new great things. Well, the good news is all of the rules for how to crack into the media space have been thrown out the window in the last 10 years because you don't need a contract at a multi-million-dollar television company. You don't need to be hired by a newspaper or a magazine. You can do all of those things yourself thanks to social media, which often gets a huge bad rap. But honestly, thanks to literally what we all hold in our pocket every single day, one person, random college kid, somebody making funny videos in their backyard in North Carolina, somebody in Idaho filming what's happening in wildlife conservation. You have the capacity to have a much bigger influence than the president of the United States or the prime minister of your country or any of the most powerful media companies on the planet. That's a beautiful opportunity that's available to literally every single person. It can seem really intimidating getting started in the world of content creation because it feels like everybody else knows what they're doing and you have absolutely no idea. But the truth is, there is no secret sauce. It's just being willing to keep showing up, being willing to put yourself out there, and to experiment, to try new things in social media until you figure out what resonates well with a good audience. But I say this to everyone can and should be a content creator in the 2020s, no matter what your quote-unquote day job is, because we desperately need more people in the fight for objective truth, and social media is where we happen to spend all of our time these days. Well, first of all, if you're not paying attention, this Online Harms Act is far more dramatic than anybody could possibly have imagined for a country like Canada. It literally gives the government the opportunity to sentence you to life imprisonment for engaging in certain types of hate speech, or preemptively the government to put you under house arrest because they think you might engage in hate speech in the future based on your previous online activity. That is the stuff of North Korea and communist China and Venezuela and Cuba, like extreme totalitarian regimes. No one ever thought that would be even debated in a country like Canada, and yet here we are. That's introduced legislation. We are experiencing very similar fights to restrict the internet and to ban certain platforms, to ban certain ideas from the internet right now, also under the guise of safety. We don't call it online harms or online safety, we call it national security in our country. But really, it's the exact same effort by most Western corrupt governments today to silence ordinary citizens, to take away your voice, to take away your right to dissent against the people in power, and to take away your opportunity to influence others towards the truth. If you don't stand up and fight for this legislation today, quite literally, you will lose the opportunity to do so tomorrow. So you still have the opportunity to fight. You still have the opportunity to speak up. Utilize it now, or we'll lose that chance in the next couple of years.